Welcome back to the channel, guys. In today's video we are going to be working on the Audi S3's engines. Basically we have two dodgy EA 888 Gen 3 engines and we're going to make one good one out of both of them. Now that is the engine that came out of the S3 where there was shells missing off cylinder 3's bottom end, I think, which was causing it to go rat-tat-tat-tat. I mean, that's not revving, that is a knocking noise I was trying to impersonate there. This is the engine that is from the Golf R that was Cat B salvage that I did a video on a few days ago. Go click in the top right hand corner and go and watch that one if you haven't already. And yeah, and the idea is we're going to make one good engine. So obviously, as you can see, I haven't actually taken this off the pallet. This is how it came. Copart kindly put it on a pallet for me, strapped it up, and I literally just haven't touched it up, just brought it into the workshop. So yeah, we're gonna start stripping this engine down, taking the ancillaries off. I'm not gonna go too mad because I'm hoping I can use all the stuff that's already on it. I mean, it's the exact same stuff on that engine. So I'm just gonna try and use the best parts from both engines to build one good engine. Like for example, the sump on the Golf R engine I think had a crack in it, so I'll take the sump off of the S3 engine to put that on. Just little things like that. And also I'm going to check the turbos. They both, I'm hoping, should be good, so I'll just pick where the turbo's the best. If they're both the same, I'll just leave the turbo from the Golf R on. And also I've got a timing chain kit from BGA as well, so I'm actually going to do the timing chain on the Golf R engine. I thought while it's out, it's done about 55,000 miles, so let's just put a timing chain kit on it and be done with it, and then we know that's good, because we know that's a common problem. So if anyone's thinking about doing a timing chain, I will try and be as in-depth as I can. So yeah, the first thing we're going to be doing is separating the Golf R's engine from the gearbox and the subframe, and basically getting it into a position where it looks like the S3's engine, and then we can start comparing. Look at this cheeky little surprise, look. I've got me some APR coil packs. Beautiful. So this is probably going to be, I'm guessing, probably a stage 1 now. Could be stock, but it'd be a bit weird for APR coil packs without being stage 1. So we're going to start things off by removing the easiest parts of the engine to be able to get the engine off the subframe, and that is the exhaust, the massive element in the way. Once we've got that out of the way, we're going to remove the intake, which is another easy big thing to get out of the way. And now we need to move our drive shafts, which obviously connect the engine to the suspension, and also our diff as well, because it's very difficult to get the gearbox off of the engine with the diff on. And as it's off the engine like this, it's nice and easy to just get the diff off. Once we've got the diff off, just remove another coolant pipe as well, which is in the way. Taking the starter motor out, because there is a hidden bolt for the gearbox inside the starter motor, and once we've done that, we can hook up the engine with the engine crane, lift it up, and that is where the fun starts, where I need to try and remove the dog bone mount at the bottom, which is proving very difficult because I just couldn't get clearance enough to be able to get a spanner under there properly. And yeah, I had a right fun trying to do it, but eventually did it, and then we can remove the remaining bolts for the gearbox and just pull the gearbox off like that. Right, so after the fun trying to get the dog bone mount off the bottom of the gearbox, which was yeah, fun when it was sitting on it, we've now got the engine in a position like this. Gearbox is now detached. Now just going over a few things, there are, yeah, one of the mounts for the gearbox has broken off. You can see the mount snapped, but this bolt here is snapped as well. I mean, anyone that can weld could fix that quite comfortably, but obviously that's going to impact quite badly the resale value of the gearbox. But the diff's good, so that'd be worth something. I haven't really looked at anything else at the moment, so just going over to the engine. Now there are a few things that I need to replace, such as this coolant pipe here. No, is it that one? I just saw, oh no, it was, oh this one here, look. This coolant pipe here, look, because look, that's smashed and missing. So there's a few things I've got to replace, nothing major, and I'm hoping that everything I need to replace will be on this engine, as this one hasn't been damaged. And I have just had a look as well. Where's my torch? There it is. I'll just look around the engine to see if there's any oil leaks, anything obvious, any coolant leaks or anything, but we are looking pretty good. Now, the most obvious thing on here is like the thermostat on the Golf R's, the EA 888s. They're very common to leak, and you have to replace the whole unit, which is behind this intake pipe. But looking at it, there's definitely no coolant leaks or oil leaks or anything, which is good. And although I can't see a manufacturing date, it doesn't look too old. It definitely doesn't look as old as other parts as well. It's just that part there, look, it looks fairly clean. So I'm wondering if that has been replaced recently. Either or, it's not leaking now, so we can forget about it. So I have the engine set up. For the timing chain, I've just got my timing chain kit out here, got everything required in here. So we are just gonna, now I'm just gonna clean up these magnets, clean up this area here with a bit of brake cleaner, and then we've got to take the top timing chain cover off and the bottom one. There's a hole in the sump, so there's no oil in it, so normally you'd have to drain the oil because otherwise it would come out the bottom here, because this is a sealing part, and it looks like it's leaking a little bit anyway, which, let's be honest, every single one does eventually, so it'd be good to reseal that. So yeah, let me strip it down and then I'll show you what we're doing. So to start things off, just going to clean the area, and then there's 6 T30s to remove the camshaft magnets, and once we've got those off, there's another 6 T30s to remove the top timing chain cover, and then another 15 or so T30s to remove the lower timing chain cover, which is actually held on with silicone, so you do need to pry it off, and just remember to clean it up. And there we have it, the timing chain's now completely exposed, and yeah, it looks fairly complicated, just as complicated as the V8 engines. Now, I haven't changed one of these timing chains for probably about 7 odd years, so it may take me a little while, but we are going to be replacing the timing chain here, the main one here, and the one at the back here. We're not going to be changing the oil pump one, we'll be leaving that one. So we'll also be changing all the guides for those timing chains and the 2 tensioners as well. So I am just going to put it on another time lapse and just try and talk you through what I'm doing, otherwise this will be a 5 million hour long video. You do need special tools, so you need a special tool to remove the camshafts. I do have like a little, where is it? It's up there, it's like a little EA 888 timing kit, tool kit if you will. So I just bought that off Amazon. So that should hopefully see me through. So yeah, I'll talk you through changing this timing chain. Now, as I'm sure I've mentioned already, you do need a lot of special tools to do this. In fact, it's impossible to actually remove some things without a special tool, like it is with the camshaft filters at the top here. Once you've got those off, you can remove the camshaft cradle, and then once you've got the cradle out of the way, you need to get 2 special timing chain pins that go and lock the crankshaft into position. Obviously, before all this is done, you need to get the car into, or the engine into TDC, and to do that, you actually need the lower timing chain cover on. So just remember to get the car into TDC before you do anything. I probably should have said that at the beginning. I might put a little disclaimer. Now, once you've got the engine in TDC, we can start removing the timing chain guides and the tensioner itself. And then once it's all slack, we can just remove the chains. It's all quite fairly straightforward and easier than it looks. And there we go, we are halfway fully stripped down. Now, apologies, it is quite hard to film a time lapse when I've got to be in the way all the time. I don't know how much of that you caught, so I'm going to try and improve the angle for refitting it just so you can try and see a bit more. But we have everything now removed. So it's actually been quite difficult because there are so many goddamn special tools that you need to do things, it's ridiculous. Now, one of the things that was really difficult to do was turn the camshafts with the camshaft filters removed. So I had to remove them to get the cage off, so these are loose, and you may use a special locking tool that locks into here. Look, see that flange there? So it pushes in, so then you can rotate the camshaft. I don't have that special tool, so it was very difficult for me to try and rotate the camshaft to get the locking pins in, and also rotate this one to slacken the chain off to get this top guide out. So that was probably the hardest part, but I did manage to do it. I ended up just having to put these back on and then tighten them up a little bit, and then that made me able to turn the camshaft a little bit, which just enough to enable me to get the tools in properly. So that was the hardest part. Now, right, so yeah, everything's stripped down. I am following instructions, like genuine instructions how to do this, because they're so complicated these days that I just want to get it right. One of the things I had to do, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but so our idler pulley here, look, it wants us to, these weren't aligned, and I don't know if you're able to see it, but there's 3, so on this pulley here, see that dot in between the teeth? And then on the back pulley, there are 2 dots on the teeth on that. So you've got basically 3 dots and they all interlock. So I had to rotate it about 10 times to get those all to interlock. So that's now in the right place. Now with the timing chains, this is the old one, but you get the idea. See, some of the links are coloured. And basically this helps us fit it. So as you can see here, there's a little dot on this sprocket. See that dot there? There's also the dot here, and when we put our main sprocket on, there'll be a dot or an arrow on that as well. And basically we have to fit the chains, so the coloured links a line with the dots on each one, so therefore you know you can't get it wrong. It's the same with the camshaft. The dot's up here, we have a dot here, and there'll be another dot, separate dot on the crank here, and as long as you get the coloured links in the right place, you can't actually cock up time in the engine. So that's a better way of doing it. Right, so we're pretty much there in regards to timing. So I've put all my tensioners back in. That one's done. That one's already done up. All we've got to do is screw the bolt into tension the idler pulleys. Oil pump, that is tensioners back in and locking pin pulled out. My cylinder head here, I've just taken the sliders out that lock the camshafts in. So everything is done. The only thing that's not done is the main chain isn't taut. But first of all, we've just got to check all our pins line up. So we have our idler pulley here. So you can see pin lining up, you can see pin lining up with that one, and then on the sprocket you can see the pin there and the chain all good. And then we've got our main chain, so you can see the coloured link is over that dot on the intake cam and correctly on the exhaust, and then it's just got to match the crankshaft one there. And as you can see, look, little notch on the crank there and the coloured link. So it is all correct, everything's in the right position. So all I've got to do now is just fit my camshaft sprocket cradle there, remove these two locking tools, and then all I've got to do is pull this pin here. For those of you who are wondering, I think I get asked quite a few times, I use the genuine repair method from Volkswagen, and it is Elsa Win. I picked up a copy years and years ago, so to be fair, it's absolutely spot on, helps me with all the procedures just like this. And there we go, all back in position, all tightened up. So all I've got to do now is literally pull this clamp off here, which should just be a case of doing that and letting it pressure out like so. And then what we've got to do now that's pressured out, we need to rotate the engine 2 times just to make sure our timing marks are exactly the same. Now these little markers here, because obviously everything's out, it's not identical, they will never be in the same position again, well, not for many turns anyway. So don't be alarmed when you do two rotations that the pins are not on the coloured chain links. So all we've got to do is make sure that we're going to mark it here, mark it here, mark it here, just make sure they all end up back in the same position. Right, so that's all the timing side of the engine all back together now. There is a few things I've got to do before we need to swap over, because obviously this was on a manual gearbox. We need to take the DSG, where is it? The DSG flywheel off of the old engine, replace it with the clutch that's on this engine currently, and then we can get our DSG box hooked up. The turbos, I've checked both turbos and they're absolutely both fine, so I'm just going to keep this turbo on. It's done 10,000 less miles anyway, and we do obviously plan to put the hybrid one on it at some point anyway, so that's fine. Looking down the back of the engine, there's no leaks or any sign of coolant or oil leaks. Everything looks spot on down here, so I'm not worried about that. There are a few things like this coolant pipe and also the sump. I'll change those when the engine is in the car, and obviously because of the sumps sat on a pallet, it's a bit harder to do. So once it's in the car, I'll be able to change it a lot easier, and stuff like this as well. So there is one thing that I need to do, and the connectors for this was broken. I think obviously when this pipe broke here, maybe it interfered and just smashed these connectors, look. So luckily I have a spare wiring loom. I have just chopped out, look, the connectors, so I'm going to splice those into that line. And yeah, that'll be spot on. So as this wiring loom is actually quite accessible, nice at the moment, I can sit on my little stool, I will just splice the new loom into this, that's all done, and then we'll go ahead and remove the flywheel from the DSG, stick it on this one, get the gearbox in, get the front diff on, and we'll get the M2 out now that it's waterproof, and we'll get the S3 into the workshop, ready to mount the engine. Right, so that's that loom all now spliced in. I'm just going to get some proper tape to match this that I need to order. But for now, obviously, it means the engine can run, so we'll just leave it like that. Now, I went to just swap this little filter off of the other engine because the tab on this is broke, so there's no way that it doesn't actually clip on. Another perfect example as to why I'm not rebuilding this engine. So I took this little filter out, and yeah, look at all the metal particles in it. And that is just going to be all over this engine. Right, I've got some slightly annoying news. I've got to go to Audi and get a part because, yeah, I'll show you. The manual engine doesn't come with a pilot bearing. The automatic engine has a pilot bearing. I won't be able to get that out without making a hash brown of it, so I need a new one. So I'm just going to go down to Audi now and pick up a new one, get that fitted. So the old engine, obviously manual gearbox, had an RTS clutch. It had a paddle clutch fitted. It was quite worn out. I'm not going to touch it because I've got clean hands, but the other side of that, I'll bugger it, I'll touch it. So the other side, look, you can see paddle clutch, obviously you can just take more torque. So yeah, this engine, unless it's been a well-maintained standard car, which is entirely plausible, I imagine this was a stage 1 car, purely because it didn't have a downpipe on it or a sports cat. So I'm saying at the minute it's been fairly well looked after maintenance-wise. Obviously upgraded clutch and APR plugs, so I feel this is a nice engine. Well, I just got back from Audi and picked up all my R8 parts as well. I have a lot of parts in this box, so that will be a video coming soon. But we have our new pilot bearing here, so luckily I can just bang this in the end of the crank and job done. There we go. Beautiful. Now this was the fun part. Putting the flywheel back on was actually quite straightforward. It was getting the gearbox on that proved difficult because obviously swinging engine and the automatic gearbox is quite a bit heavier than a manual. So I tried to enlist the help of my dad, but yeah, it proved to be quite difficult. But eventually we got there in the end after much swearing, as you can probably guess, I'm sure. What a pain getting that one on. Yeah, the automatic gearbox is a lot heavier than a manual. So as you could saw, it took two of us, swinging engine. I mean, not ideal conditions, but I work with what I've got. So we got it on in the end, and all I've got to do now is put on my diff before we then look at mounting it back in the car. So I thought I'd get the car ready. So for the first time, the M2 can actually come outside and stay outside. It is now waterproof, so we'll get that out. And my dad's now gone, so I'm gonna have to try and roll the S3 in on my own. So it should be fun. So that is going to be the end of today's video, guys. Sorry I didn't film the outro in the workshop. I just completely ran out of time and had to shoot off. I'm actually away at Centre Parks this weekend. Some of you may recognise the trees in the background. So yeah, I'm literally editing the video now and literally just need to film an outro. So as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. If you do enjoy these types of videos, please do subscribe if you haven't already. And in the next video, we will be getting the engine running. Whether it runs or not is another story, but we will be turning that key. So as always, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.